Hello, 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 everybody. Happy Sunday. Welcome in, welcome in. Good to see you all. Hello, hello, welcome. I've got my sub chat Sunday on for tonight. Here we go. I'm trying to make sure I've got everything's in frame. Hello, hello, Miss Julie. Good to see you. Hello. Hi, James. Hopefully everyone's had a lovely weekend. Hopefully. Oh my goodness. Hello, evening. Good evening. Yes, from Illinois. Wonderful. Love that. Love that. Yes, today's just been a little bit of an off day for me, so I am very happy to be able to come on and do the sub chat tonight. So, hello, welcome. I'm doing okay, Cynthia. It's been a bit of an off day today, so I think it's the weather. I tell you, when the weather gets super bad, I think any of us who struggle extra hard on those rainy, cloudy days. So, yes. Well, hi, Daisy May. Good to see you. Yes, well, I was happy to, I saw you Friday. No, I didn't. I did not go live on Saturday, everyone. I did take the day off and rested, and so that worked out really well for me. And I did not go live earlier today. I had planned to, but things just didn't come together for me. So this is the first time I've been back since my Friday. So no one's missed any. Yay. I have been trying to post to my Tube of You every day, so we should be pretty close to being caught up on the New York things. Once I get caught up on all of my Tube of You posts for New York, I will be posting the other themed lives that I have been doing. So we have had some other lives on the Arizona indictment and various other things. So those will all be coming up as well. Oh, exactly. Sea legs. Exactly. Yes. I think we all have that way of telling when the weather's about to change or get better or worse if we've got some things going on. So that's kind of where I'm at also. So it's been a bit of a rough couple days, but feeling better now. Happy to be here. So yes, happy to be here. Well, welcome in, everyone. So I did set out a couple of options for tonight's live. I had set out, we've got a new indictment on another U.S. representative. Yikes, that's looking pretty bad. And then we had also had the option of doing just an update on the Georgia case and just going through the docket there. There's really not anything going on. That's very, very exciting. And then the third option was to continue on with Mr. Pecker's testimony. And it seemed overwhelmingly people had wanted to come in and listen to Mr. Pecker's direct. So I will be doing another batch of Mr. Pecker's testimony. Now, oh my goodness, everybody, we had a couple of pretty big days of testimony this last week. So I have been able to print out Mr. Davidson's testimony, but Hope Hicks's testimony is just not available yet. I had really, I've been watching for it. So I have been constantly watching for it. I'm very interested to see that. So when that comes out, and I will definitely go live and read through that sometime this week. I'm planning to, as soon as it's available, but I just have not been able to pull it yet. So once it's available, I will pull it. These transcripts, we're very thankful that the New York courts have made them available to all of us. So I continue to go through Mr. Pecker's testimony because I think his testimony sets the whole scene. He sets out the entire story of everything that the state's kind of going through. We've got a couple of other very important star witnesses that came in later on, of course, but I think going through Mr. Pecker's testimony, I think, really is important. So I'm taking a lot of extra time here to make sure to go through his full testimony. How much do they charge? Great question, Cecilia. I don't know. I have heard, and again in New York, I can't quite figure out, but it might be maybe $500 to $700 per day. So I think that's about right. Heard it was riveting. Yes. Oh my goodness. Yes, I'm very, very interested. Mr. Davidson's testimony and his cross and his redirect are also very good to learn about how to do a direct and a cross and a redirect. So very, very interesting. I will be coming back again, of course, this week and doing multiple lives, going through more of the transcripts as they become available. I have printed out pretty much everything now up to Hope Hicks. So everything up to that point I do have available. It's just a matter of making the time and sitting down and being able to do that. So very interesting situation. All right, everyone. Well, welcome in. This is my Sub Chat Sunday. I just have my chats turned to my subscribers, and everyone else is free to come and hang out with us. But I do like to have my chat on my subscribers on Sundays. So we have been going through Mr. Pecker's testimony, everyone. I have done 2 lives. I did 2 lives on Friday, and in order to get through, we got through about 250, almost 300 pages. There's a bit left to do on his direct examination, and then we have his cross-examination as well. So it's, again, it seems like every page there's something very interesting that's coming. I apologize, those are my cats, again, in the distance. Oh, these cats, I tell you, everyone. I'm embarrassed. I'm about to turn it to the page, and there is a paw print on it, and I am sorry. I'll apologize ahead of time. I have a little Atticus paw print here. So, yeah. So I've done the best I can. Oh my gosh. But, you know, the cats will be cats. Oh my gosh. Yes, they may come in at some point, but they may not. I'm not sure. I had to replace a couple of things. So they're definitely hanging out. Yes, well, you know, and here's the thing. I won't spend too much time on this, but I don't know, for some reason Atticus likes to put his toys in his water dish. So he puts them in his water dish and then he plays with them and then he tosses them around, and so like the whole house is just, you know, wet cat toys. And, you know, I'm not sure what to do about it. I'm figuring it's a cat thing, but yeah, so there's been a lot of that going on. I'm not sure what he's doing. The Pearl doesn't. She's like, what are you doing with my water? You know, leave my water dish alone. But for some reason, he just does it. Yeah, part raccoon. Oh my gosh, hilarious. Oh, your cat used to do that too. Yeah, I've had with my previous cat, that was not a thing. And so that's just his favorite thing. It's a cat thing. Yes, happy Cinco de Mayo, everybody. They make cat dishes. Yes, I need to look into it. I've been looking at some different water bowls, so I think I might need to do that. And he's just now starting to meow, everybody. So I think I had talked before, we got him when he was just little, and he wasn't really meowing. But now he's starting to meow. He meows before I give him his bath and before I feed him. And I mean, they're not happy sounds, but so he's going through he's trying to live his best life, but he's going through some things right now. He's struggling. I think he's found his voice. Yeah. Now, keep in mind, I do not think that giving cats baths are necessary unless you have an extremely dirty kitten, and then you really have no other choice. Something has to be done. So, oh my gosh, yes, it's been quite funny. So we're really enjoying it. He's getting to a point now, though, where he's almost not fitting in the sink properly, and I'm wondering if I'm overfeeding him. The vet says he's fine, so, we'll keep going. We'll keep going for it. Oh, Frank, thanks. Yes, I do have my little. So if there are any other paw prints, I tried to get everything sorted out and reprinted, but I just apologize in advance for that. So welcome in. Oh, yes. He doesn't mind it. In fact, he goes and sits in the tub and in the shower. He doesn't seem to mind it, but once he's in the tub. But he just is for some reason he likes to just go and crawl around in places that he requires a bath afterwards. So oh my goodness. Well, enough about that. So my kittens are doing great at this point. and quite happy. So welcome in, everyone. I do plan to go ahead and go through the Pecker, continuing on with the Pecker Direct here. So with that, we left off on Friday on page 1220. So we had a couple of questions that came up after that, and I will kind of dive on into the testimony itself. We had a couple of housekeeping issues that did come up here. So we've got some exhibits discussions that went forward. So I'm going to kind of fast forward through that so that we can get to the testimony here. So nothing too particularly interesting regarding any hearsay points and so on. But they do have to kind of hash these things out previously before they start the testimony. So basically at the beginning and ending of every court session, they will do a little bit of housekeeping and cleanup at the beginning and at the end. So, oh, I love dogs born to bark. I love dogs. Oh my gosh. Oh, we had so many dogs out in my childhood. And, but my significant other, my contractually obligated mate, I try to think of a new phrase each time. He has a fear of dogs. So he is just afraid of dogs. And, you know, I've tried to introduce him to some dogs, you know, to kind of have that, you know, like immersion therapy, but it's really not been working quite right. He still runs away. So, oh my gosh, I wouldn't say he runs away, more like he gets very angry. He runs away mentally. How's that? Physically he's still there, but mentally he's like, I'm out of here. So he's just not, he's had some negative dog experiences, but oh my gosh, I love, love, love dogs. Always had them. At some point we will see, you know, what happens in time. At some point, I think we will, but yeah, he just, for some reason, I think there was some Great Danes involved, and he was, you know, young. Yeah, there was some trauma, but you know, for me, and you know, I won't give away too much information, but when I was a child, we lived on a farm, and so of course we had tons and tons of dogs, and we had black labs and Dalmatians and all kinds of dogs. So lots of fun, lots of fun. Oh, the Danes are great. I know. Start with a little one. Well, we're starting with a cat, so we're reworking it. We're going through the trauma situation. Oh my goodness. They'll love him the best. Oh, I know. He's just right. It'll be a slow process, but I think at some point, I think I'll get him to turn around. Oh my goodness. Yes, baby steps. Exactly. All right, everyone. So with that, oh my gosh, let me grab my next pen here. I got a new pen, everybody. I know I'm just kind of chit-chatting here, but it is Subchat. So here's my new pen that I just got. I'm not sure. I think it's really cool looking. It's like a old like stand, like a street sign, and then this is a magnifying glass, you know, for people who need that. And then this comes out, like this is the holder, and then this is the pen part. So I'm very excited about this. I thought that looked really fun. So that's kind of my new pen that I've been playing around a little bit with. So that's really fun. Oh yeah, it's very, very fun. So I may use it tonight and then kind of see what everybody thinks about it. So I find my Subchat to be all my test subjects here. So, oh, I know. I love pens. Pens are so fun. Yeah, lamppost. Yeah. And then again, because it's got this kind of magnifying glass, I think that's extra fun. So yeah, so that's my new pen for tonight. All right, here we go. Point of needing readers. Oh, I know. There comes a point where you have to just recognize that, you know, it is what it is. So where did you get it? I got it at a little shop on my Main Street area. So it wasn't a big shop. It was, you know, so I'm not sure exactly where you can find it, but yeah. Oh yes, no, I'm lucky. I'm able to kind of make things work because of how I've got my screen set up here. So I'm very thankful for that. But yes, Diagon Alley, exactly, Kristen. How did you know? I was there. All right. So, well, I don't know, everyone. With that, I'm already noticing I've got a little bit of a length issue. You know, I've been struggling to find a nice long pen. For some reason, I get a pen and, you know, I'm like, well, this is nice, but it's too short. Like, the tip is too short. So I've been struggling a little bit. So I may need, for tonight, I know I'm taking up a lot of time, everybody, but I think for tonight I'll probably go with the drumstick. That one's kind of longer. So, all right, longer pen for tonight. Yeah, long and skinny. The short, chubby ones are just not as comfortable, you know, with when you're reading. I just find that, you know, they just don't fit quite right in my hand. So the longer, skinny ones are more comfortable for me. So, oh, this one's nice too, but I've been biting on it, so I'm not sure exactly. Hopefully, just don't notice the bite marks, everybody. All right, here we go. Here we go. Let's dive in. Oh my goodness gracious. We certainly do have our preferences. We certainly do. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. All right. Right. Here we go, everyone. Diving in. Court officer. Witness entering, whereupon the witness, David Pecker, having been previously duly sworn and or affirmed, resumes the witness stand and testifies as follows. Good afternoon, Mr. Pecker. You're still under oath, sir. All rise, jury entering, whereupon the jurors and the alternate jurors are present and properly seated. The clerk. Continuing case on trial, People v. Donald J. Trump. All parties and all jurors are present. Continuing direct examination by Mr. Steinglass. So here we go. Good afternoon, Mr. Pecker. Good afternoon. When we broke before lunch, we just finished talking about a meeting you had in Trump Tower on January 6th of 2017. Do you remember that? Yes, I do. Directing your attention to July of that same year, 2017, did there come a time when you visited the White House? Yes, I did. How did that come about? I received a call from President Trump's office and from his assistant, Madeline. I think it was Whiteout Phonetic. I can't remember her last name. And she said, the president's on the phone. Mr. Trump called and invited me to the White House for dinner. Did he say why? He said it was a thank you dinner and he invited myself and my wife. What did you say? I said, I'll speak to my wife and I'll get right back to you. And did you do that? I did. And my wife didn't want to go to Washington. Oh my goodness. And I called Mr. Trump and explained this to him. And he said, look, business friends, business associates, it's your dinner. Your dinner meaning my thank you dinner. So who did you bring? Did you go? Yes. Who did you bring? I brought all business associates. You don't have to tell us everybody you brought, but among the people you brought, did it include Dylan Howard? Yes. Did it include David Brodsky? Yes, it did. Do you remember who you coordinated the logistics of your visit with? We coordinated everything through Madeline at the White House. So what happened when you went? When we arrived at the White House, we were all taken to the Oval Office. And in the Oval Office, Jared Kushner was there and Sean Spicer was there. And each of the people that I brought to the White House was able to take a photo with Mr. Trump in the Oval Office. Did the subject of Karen McDougal come up at all? At the time, to have dinner, Mr. Trump asked me to join him in a walk from the Oval Office to the dining area. We passed the Rose Garden. And we walked out. President Trump asked me, how is Karen doing? He said, how's Karen doing? So I said, she's doing well. She's quiet. Everything's going good. And who do you understand Karen to be a reference to? Karen was Karen McDougal. Now, you mentioned that you and Dylan Howard posed for photos in the White House that day? Yes, we did. I'm showing you and the jury what's in evidence as Peoples 179, and I just want to ask you if you recognize the series of documents. You can scroll through a little bit if you want. Whereupon exhibits were shown on the screens. Yes. And are these a series of texts between Dylan Howard and Keith Davidson produced in response to a subpoena served on AMI? Yes, it was. And does the exhibit include separate photos of yourself and Dylan Howard in the White House? No response. Do you need to see? I haven't seen these. Let me show you page 4 of this exhibit, whereupon an exhibit is shown on the screens. Yes, I see a photo of Dylan Howard. So the person, you recognize the person depicted in that photo? Yes, that's Dylan Howard. Okay, do you know where that photo was taken? It was in the White House. I don't know which room it was. All right, let me show you page 3 of the exhibit, whereupon an exhibit is shown on the screens, and ask you if you recognize the people depicted in this photo. Yes, that's myself and President Trump. We were walking to dinner. And is this when you had that conversation about Karen? Yes. Wow, that's genius, everybody. I'm pausing for a moment. When you can literally put the jury in the shoes of the moment. This is what he looked like. This is the picture. And this is exactly what he said. That's perfection. Love when that comes together. And I want to finally direct you to page 2 of this exhibit, whereupon an exhibit is shown on the screens. And I'm going to ask you, is this a text between Dylan Howard and Keith Davidson? Yes, it is. What is in the body of the text? Dylan telling Keith how the dinner went last night? What day was the text sent? July 12th. So does that mean that the dinner was on July 11th of 2017? Yes. Thank you. Thank you. You can take that down. Directing your attention to August 11th of 2017. Did you meet with Karen McDougal personally? Yes, I did. Where was that? It was at a restaurant in New York called Il Postino. Who else was present at this lunch at Il Postino? Keith Davidson and Dylan Howard and Karen McDougal. How did this meeting come about? Dylan came to my office and said that he spoke to Keith Davidson, and Keith thought that it would be a good idea that if I had lunch with Karen McDougal and that they would like to come to New York for a meeting, see the offices of American Media. What was the purpose of the lunch? Let me ask you this. What was discussed at the lunch? When I had lunch with Karen, she talked about the articles that she was preparing with the ghostwriters. She was a little bit upset because Dylan Howard had to change some of the ghostwriters because they weren't working well with Karen. And she talked about her idea of a concept of going forward and launching some beauty products that we talked about originally that she had brought up in the original agreement. Then she said that she wasn't pleased because the articles were taking a while. She hasn't been trained for media training because she wanted to be the anchor on the red carpet for the Radar digital site. So she was stating that she would like to get what she would like to get done. From my standpoint, the purpose of the meeting was to make sure that we were complying to her agreement and that she was comfortable with what we committed to her on what we were going to provide. Why did you want her to believe that? I wanted her to remain within our family, I should say, whereby she was comfortable that we were complying with what we had promised in the original agreement, and that she would not go out and speak to the press after what happened after the Wall Street Journal article and all the press that came out. So I wanted to see how comfortable she was. So now I want to direct your attention to January of 2008. You just reminded us about an article that came out about Karen McDougal in the Wall Street Journal on November 4th of 2016. Did another article come out in the Wall Street Journal in January of 2018 in which the press publicly reported that Michael Cohen paid Stormy Daniels not to discuss her relationship with Mr. Trump? Yes. Do you remember when that was? No response. What date it was? I thought it was either early January. All right, let me show you privately People's Exhibit 181. Whereupon an exhibit is shown to the witness on his screen. Do you see it? Yes, I do. Is this the article that revealed that Michael Cohen had paid Stormy Daniels to keep quiet about her affair with Donald Trump? Yes, it is. I offer it into evidence. No objection, subject to limiting instruction. It's accepted into evidence, again, subject to the same instructions I've given you before. It's being offered not for the truth of the matter asserted, but just to demonstrate that it was, in fact, printed on that date. Now we can display to everybody, please. Let me just ask you, Mr. Pecker, what was the date of this article? January 12th of 2018. What outfit published it? This was published by the Wall Street Journal. Now, once again, did AMI issue a press release withdrawn? Directing your attention now to March 2018, did you come to learn that Karen McDougal was interviewed by Anderson Cooper? Yes. Do you recall when that interview took place? I thought it was on March of 2018. I remember the middle of March, March 18th, somewhere around there, somewhere around that area. Did you watch it when it aired? Yes, I did. Did Mr. Trump contact you in connection with Miss McDougal's appearance on Anderson Cooper? The following day, I received a call from Mr. Trump. Can you tell the jury what about that call? Yes. Donald called and he said to me, he said, did you see the interview last night with Anderson Cooper and Stormy Daniels? And I said, yes. He said, before you go on, right now, I'm just asking you about the airing of the Anderson Cooper interview with Karen McDougal. We'll get into the Stormy Daniels interview later. Oh, so my question is, did Mr. Trump call you in connection with the Karen McDougal's appearance? Yes, he did. Now, please tell us what he told you about that. So, Mr. Trump said when he called me that he said, did you see the Anderson Cooper interview with Karen McDougal? I said yes. He said, I thought you had, and we had an agreement with Karen McDougal that she can't give any interviews or be on any television shows. So I said, yes, I said, we have an agreement, but I amended it to allow her to speak to the press. So Mr. Trump got very agitated when he heard that. I had amended it and couldn't understand why. I said Karen was a 2-year agreement. She was flooded with requests from the press for interviews, and I amended her agreement at the time. He said, well, then you paid her? I said, yes, I paid her, and I amended the agreement. So he was very upset. He couldn't understand why I did it. And that was basically the conversation. When you said he was very upset, he couldn't believe that you did it. Who is the he you're referring to? He, referring to Donald Trump. Did there come a time after that when you spoke with Mr. Trump and other members of his White House staff? Yes. When in relation to the call that you had with Mr. Trump alone? It was right after the call that I'd had with Mr. Trump. And who else was part of that call besides yourself and Mr. Trump? Hope Hicks and Sanders. Okay, can you tell the jury about that call a bit? Pausing for a tea break, everyone. One moment, please. This is a drumstick pencil here. Yeah, it's a drumstick, so if you can just kind of play if you're getting antsy. All right, so here we go. And again, Hope Hicks, I will be doing her transcript later this week. Well, on that call, what I was planning to do, and I mentioned it to the previous call, on the previous call to Mr. Trump, that I was going to extend Karen McDougal's contract. It was for 6 months. The contract was up, and I felt that the last lunch that I had with her, that we had fulfilled some of the obligations that she was looking for, specifically her beauty products and media training. So I was going to send a contract. He thought that was, on our original conversation, he thought that that was also a bad idea. So when I received the second call, when I got the call back, and Hope Hicks and Huckabee, Sanders Huckabee, when she was on the call, I explained to them, to the two of them, that why I was going to extend her agreement. And both of them said that they thought that it was a good idea. Did we miss Huckabee? Did we miss that Huckabee was involved in this, everyone? Did I miss that? All right. Lest we forget, we've got, oh my gosh. All right, here we go. What was the reason that you gave for why you wanted to extend Karen McDougal's contract? I wanted to extend her contract so she would not go out and give any further interviews or talk to the press or say negative comments about American media. We all did. Okay, not just me then. Whew. Or about Mr. Trump. Now, you said when you had your individual conversation with Mr. Trump, he was skeptical of that? Yes. How about when you explained the reason that you wanted to extend her contract to Mr. Trump, Ms. Hicks, and Ms. Sanders? How did Mr. Trump react to the new plan? Or how did he react to the plan during the second conversation? He said, it's your business. You do whatever you plan on doing. Directing your attention to March of 2018, did there come a time when Miss McDougal filed a lawsuit against AMI? Yes, she did. Briefly, what was the nature of the lawsuit? The lawsuit was basically for one reason. She, being Karen McDougal, wanted to get back her lifetime rights. So she wanted out of the non-disclosure agreement. That's correct. How was that lawsuit ultimately resolved? We settled, and I returned her lifetime rights back to Karen. Did you ever communicate with Michael Cohen about the lawsuit while it was pending? Yes, I did. And did you tell him what you were planning to do? I did. And he thought that was a very bad idea. He couldn't understand why I would agree to anything like that. And I told him that she's very upset, and I'm not going to continue on with the potential litigation, and I'm just going to give her back her rights. Is that what you did? Yes. Now, a few days after Ms. McDougal's appearance on Anderson Cooper, did you also come to learn that Stormy Daniels was interviewed by Anderson Cooper? Yes. And did you watch the broadcast when it aired? I did. Did Mr. Trump contact you in connection with Ms. Daniels' appearance on Anderson Cooper? Yes, he did. Can you describe for the jury how that conversation went? When Mr. Trump called me, he said to me the same. He asked me if I saw the Stormy Daniels interview with Anderson Cooper. I said, yes, I did. He said that we have an agreement with Stormy Daniels and that she cannot mention my name or do anything like this. And each time she breaches the agreement, it's $1 million penalty. And based on the interview with Anderson Cooper, Stormy Daniels owes Donald Trump $24 million. That's what Donald Trump told you? That's what he told me. Directing your attention to early 2018, do you remember receiving a letter from the Federal Election Commission around that time? Yes, I do. Did you speak with Michael Cohen after receiving that letter? Yes. Can you describe that conversation for us? When I received the letter from the Federal Election Commission, the FEC, I called up Michael Cohen immediately, and I asked him, I said, Michael, I just received this letter. So Michael Cohen said, so did I. I said, what are you going to do about that? He said, I'm going to respond, and I'm going to send them a letter. I said, I'm very worried. And Michael Cohen says to me, why are you worried? I said, what do you mean? He said, Jeff Sessions is the Attorney General and Donald Trump has him in his pocket. Oh, ouch, that one hurt everybody. I said, I'm very worried. Directing your attention to September 21st of 2018, were you aware that AMI entered into a non-prosecution agreement and a statement of facts with the Southern District of New York? Yes. And is the Southern District of New York, is it your understanding that those are federal prosecutors? Yes, I understand that. Were you still CEO of AMI at the time that agreement was executed? Yes, I was. What is your understanding of that non-prosecution agreement? We admitted to a campaign violation. And objection, move to strike, overruled, please approach, whereupon the following proceedings were held at a sidebar. What's the objection? I may have misheard. I thought I may have heard he admitted to an election violation. Can you read that back? Whereupon the requested portion was read back by the court reporter. I think that's a mischaracterization of the agreement. We understand the agreement is coming in with a limited instruction. We don't think that there should be testimony about what he did there. This agreement's coming in? Yes, we're not going to object. It's coming in subject to the limiting instruction. When would you like the limiting instructions? When it's admitted, please. I actually do think that's a fair characterization of it. In any event, to the extent that the operation of the witness's mind differs from the agreement will be in, and everything will be cleared up. That's how I read the agreement. Is that they admitted to a campaign finance violation? Whereupon the following proceedings were held in open court. The objections overruled. In addition to that, did this agreement impose a requirement on AMI and its representatives to cooperate and give truthful testimony and information? Yes. And as a result of that, would AMI not be criminally prosecuted for campaign finance violations? That's correct. As part of that agreement, did AMI make several admissions, including in statements of facts? Yes, they did. As CEO at the time, did you review the statement of facts before anyone from AMI signed the non-prosecution agreement? Yes, I did. I would like to show the witness privately what's been marked for identification as People's Exhibit 182. Do you have that in front of you? Yes, I do. I'm going to ask you, do you recognize that exhibit? Yes. Is that an exact copy of the non-prosecution agreement that AMI entered into within the Southern District of New York, along with the statement of admitted facts that attached to the agreement? Yes, it is. I offer it into evidence. No objection. Would you like the instruction at this time? Yes, Your Honor. Thank you. Jurors, we have just heard testimony that while David Pecker was an executive at AMI entered into a non-prosecution agreement with federal prosecutors, as well as a conciliation agreement with the Federal Election Commission. That evidence was permitted to assist you, the jury, in assessing David Pecker's credibility and to help provide context for some of those surrounding events. You may consider that testimony for those purposes only. Neither the non-prosecution agreement nor the conciliation agreement is evidence of the defendant's guilt, and you may not consider it in determining whether the defendant is guilty or not guilty of the charged crimes. Thank you, Judge. Now, we can display that for everyone, please. I'm going to ask you, Mr. Pecker, what's the date on this non-prosecution agreement? September 20th of 2018. Okay, I'm going to ask you to walk us through portions of it. I apologize in advance. Can we please blow up page 1, paragraph 1? Can you read that, or would you rather have it read and tell me if I get it right? That's up to you. You want me to read the entire paragraph? Whichever you prefer. Sure. Now, again, I'm not going to read the entire agreement, everyone, but I think it is really important to get what the information is here that the prosecutor's trying to get to the jury. So we will kind of dive in here a little bit. Based on the cooperation and implementation of remedial measures described below and strictly subject to the terms, conditions, and understandings set forth herein, the Office of the United States Attorney of the Southern District of New York will not criminally prosecute American media for any crimes except for criminal tax violations, if any, as to which this office cannot and does not make any agreement, closed paren, related to its participation between in or about August 2015 up and into including or on or about October 2016 in making a contribution and expenditure aggregating $25,000 and more during the 2016 calendar year to the campaign of a candidate for President of the United States. This conduct is described more fully in the statement of facts, which is, you may have missed a line after President of the United States, comma. Oh, President of the United States, comma. To the extent AMI has disclosed such participation to this office. As of the date of this agreement, period. This conduct is described more fully in the statement of facts, which is attached hereto as Exhibit A and incorporated by reference herein. AMI accepts and acknowledges as true the facts set forth in the statement of facts. Counsel for AMI hereby represents and warrants that the Board of Directors has authorized counsel to enter into this agreement. I'm sorry to ask you such a silly question, but who did you understand the candidate for President of the United States in that paragraph to be referring to? Donald Trump. Whereupon the senior court reporter was relieved of duty. So here we go. All right, so that's a moment to pause for a tea break, I think. So just one moment. All right, we're continuing on with our direct examination. We have a new reporter that's come in. Okay, I'm now going to skip to the statement of admitted facts, which is on page 4. It starts on page 4, and I'm going to ask you to walk us through some of these paragraphs. Please, most of these paragraphs. Actually, starting with paragraph 2. Go ahead. To read just read it. Just read it. As set forth in more detail below, on or about August 10th of 2016, AMI made a payment in the amount of $150,000 in cooperation, consultation, and in concert with and at the request and suggestion of one or more members or agents of a candidate's 2016 presidential campaign to ensure that a woman did not publicize damaging allegations about a candidate before the 2016 presidential election and thereby influence the election. Wow, that's a lot. And once again, is that candidate Donald Trump? Yes. Okay, paragraph 3, please, displayed. In or about August of 2015, David Pecker, the chairman and chief executive officer of AMI, met with Michael Cohen, an attorney for the presidential candidate, and at least one other member of the campaign. At the meeting, Pecker offered to help deal with the negative stories about the presidential candidate's relationships with women by, among other things, assisting the campaign by identifying such stories so that they could be purchased and their publication avoided. Pecker agreed to keep Cohen apprised of any such negative stories. Paragraph 4. I'm sorry, before you read paragraph 4, did you understand paragraph 3 to be in reference to that August 2015 meeting that you described several times at the Trump Tower involving yourself, Mr. Cohen, and Mr. Trump? That's correct. Okay, I'm sorry, paragraph 4. In or about June of 2016, an attorney representing a model and actress attempting to sell her story of her alleged extramarital affair with the aforementioned presidential candidate contacted an editor of the National Enquirer. Pecker and the editor called Cohen and informed him of the story. At Cohen's urging and subject to Cohen's promise that AMI would be reimbursed, the editor began negotiating for purchase of the story. On June 20th of 2016, the editor interviewed the model about her story. Following the interview, AMI communicated to Cohen that it would acquire the story to prevent its publication. And who did you understand that model when that paragraph refers to a model? Who did you understand that to be referenced to? Karen McDougal. Thanks. Paragraph 5, please. On or about August 5th of 2016, AMI entered into an agreement with the model to acquire her limited life rights to the story of her relationship with any then married man in exchange for $150,000. It was also agreed that AMI would feature her on 2 magazine covers and could publish over 100 magazine articles authorized by her. AMI agreed to pay the model $150,000, substantially more money than AMI otherwise would have paid to acquire the story, because of Cohen's assurances to Pecker that AMI would ultimately be reimbursed for the payment. Despite the cover and article features to the agreement, AMI's principal purpose in entering into the agreement was to suppress the model's story so as to prevent it from influencing the election. At no time during the negotiation for or acquisition of the model's story did AMI intend to publish the story or disseminate information about it publicly. On or about August 10th of 2016, AMI sent $150,000 to an attorney representing the model. Okay, paragraph 6, please. Between in or about late August of 2016 and September 2016, Cohen called Pecker and stated that he wanted to be assigned to the limited life rights portion of AMI's agreement with the model, which included the requirement that the model not otherwise disclose her story. Pecker agreed to assign the rights to Cohen for $125,000. Pecker instructed a consultant who works for AMI to complete the assignment through a company unaffiliated with AMI. On September 30th of 2016, Pecker signed, let me just stop you there for 1 second. That's consultant. Who is that? That is Daniel Rodstein. Okay, keep going. On September 30th of 2016, Pecker signed an assignment agreement which contemplated the transfer of the limited life rights portion of the AMI agreement to an entity that had been set up by Cohen for $125,000. The consult delivered the signed assignment agreement to Cohen along with an invoice from a shell corporation incorporated by the consultant for a payment of $125,000, which falsely stated that the payment was for agreed upon flat fee for advisory services. However, in or about early October 2016, after the assignment agreement was signed, but before Cohen had paid the $125,000, Pecker contacted Cohen and told him that the deal was off and that Cohen should tear up the assignment agreement. And paragraph 7. Following the 2016 presidential election, AMI published articles written by the model in OK Magazine and Star Magazine, featured on the cover of Muscle and Fitness, hers, and published articles in Radar Online featuring the model. The publication of these articles was intended, or at least in part, to keep the model from commenting publicly about her story and her agreement with AMI. Paragraph 8, please. At all relevant times, AMI knew that the corporations such as AMI are subject to federal campaign finance laws, and that expenditure by corporations made for purposes of influencing an election and in coordination with or at the request of a candidate or campaign is unlawful. At no time did AMI report to the Federal Election Commission that they had made a $150,000 payment to the model. And lastly, paragraph 9, please. AMI has cooperated with the United States Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York and the Federal Bureau of Investigation during its investigation and provided substantial and important assistance to the investigating agents and prosecutors during the course of the grand jury investigation in the Southern District of New York. Among other things, AMI has made various personnel from AMI available for numerous interviews, engaged outside counsel to ensure the integrity of its compliance with and responses to subpoenas, and responded to numerous requests from prosecutors for various specific items of information. AMI has also agreed in connection with the non-prosecution agreement to implement specific improvements to its internal compliance to prevent future violations of federal campaign finance laws. Thank you. Now, you can take that down. Thank you. Oh, actually, I'm sorry. I jumped the gun. I was just going to ask you if we could go back to page 3. Can you tell us who signed the non-prosecution agreement that had the statement of admitted facts appended to it? Who signed the non-prosecution agreement on behalf of AMI? Eric Klee, who was the general counsel of American Media. At the time? At the time. And what was the date of the non-prosecution agreement that it was signed? September 21st of 2018. Was it signed by AMI's attorneys? Yes. Outside attorneys? Yes, outside attorneys. Thank you for correcting me. Okay, thank you. Now we can take it down. Sorry. Did there also come a time when you agreed to cooperate with an investigation being conducted by the New York County District Attorney's Office? Yes. As part of that agreement, did you, your lawyer, AMI's lawyer, or representative from the District Attorney's Office sign a cooperation letter? Yes. I'm now showing you privately what has been marked for identification as People's Exhibit 183. Do you recognize that? Yes, I do. And is that an exact copy of the agreement you entered into with the New York County District Attorney's Office prior to assisting with their investigation? Yes, it is. I offer it into evidence. No objection. I accept it into evidence. Thank you, Your Honor. We can now display to everybody. And I'm just going to ask you, what's the date of this agreement? October 25th of 2019. Do you know what, let me just ask about some portions of the agreement rather than have you read the whole thing. Can we look at the bottom of page 1 and the top of page 2 maybe? Perfect, thank you. Can you read that portion of the agreement? Yes. David Pecker has agreed to speak with DANY on October 25th, 2019, regarding his knowledge of 1. Meeting with Donald J. Trump, Michael Cohen, and other employees of the Trump Organization concerning Donald J. Trump. 2. Transactions between American Media and Karen McDougal. 3. Transactions between American Media and Michael Cohen. 4. Transactions between Michael Cohen and Stephanie Clifford. And 5. Any information relevant to the background and context of the above subjects. Okay, thank you. I'm going to skip to the bottom of page 2 and the top of page 3. Thank you. Can you read that part, please? Examples of materially false or incompetent information or testimony include, but are not limited to, the use of the following. Can I just stop you there for a second before you answer that? What is your understanding that you were obliged to tell the truth or you could face perjury charges? Yes, I do. And does this portion that you're about to read give you examples of what would be considered not being truthful? Yes. I'm sorry. Now you can go back and read them. 1. Withholding the name of a person involved in criminal activity. 2. Identifying as a participant a person who is not involved in criminal activity. 3. Transposing the roles of participants in criminal activity. 4. Knowingly giving incorrect or misleading information about his participation or the participation of others in criminal activity. And 5. Misrepresenting the source of his knowledge. And Mr. Pecker, what is your understanding that if you did any of these 5 things, you would be breaching your agreement with the New York County District Attorney's Office? Yes, I understand that. And as part of your agreement, were you also required to attend meetings as requested? Yes. And as AMI obliged to furnish non-privileged documents and records? Yes, they were. And do you remember, as you sit here today, what the obligation of the New York County District Attorney's Office were in connection to this agreement? I'm not, well, let me ask you, yeah. You just told us what you have to do. Yes. Okay. What did we have to do? What did the District Attorney's Office have to do? Well, the District Attorney's Office had to do the entire investigation and interview me, as well as others, I'm assuming. And maybe you could read those couple of paragraphs from page 2, just to be perfectly clear for the jury. Okay, DANY agrees to recognize and treat David Pecker and the American media as immunized on the subjects of David Pecker's statements made to the office during the above referenced October 25th, 2019 meeting and any subsequent meeting, as to which the parties agree in writing, email sufficing, that the terms of this agreement apply. David Pecker has also agreed that, if asked, he will testify in the grand jury regarding his knowledge of the above subjects. If David Pecker testifies in the grand jury concerning the above subjects, DANY will not request that he waive immunity pursuant to Section 190.45 of the Criminal Procedure Code, and he will thus be immunized from the prosecution on the subjects of his testimony. Now, did you understand withdrawn? You testified, I think on Monday, that you are represented by counsel in connection with this case? Yes. Did you understand that any witness who testifies in the grand jury is given automatic immunity unless they waive immunity? Yes. Did you understand this paragraph to mean that DANY or the District Attorney of New York would not require you to waive and would not require you to waive immunity when you testify before the grand jury? Yes, I understand that. And did you in fact testify before the grand jury? I did. And were you given immunity as a result of that testimony? I was. And directing your attention to paragraph above that, did you understand the paragraph to mean that even though you hadn't yet testified that you were saying you would be treated, you would basically be getting immunity for what you were saying in terms of pre-grand jury interviews? Yes, I understood that. Did you sign similar letters in connection with subsequent meetings with members of the DA's office? I did. Directing your attention now to May. Can we take that down? Thank you. Directing your attention to May of 2021. Did AMI enter into a conciliation agreement with the Federal Election Commission? Yes, they did. And did someone sign that agreement on behalf of AMI? Yes. Do you remember who? Jeff Pasco, who is the current general counsel. And as a part of that agreement, did AMI agree, quote, not to the contest that AMI's payment to Karen McDougal to purchase a limited life story right combined with its decision not to publish the story in consultation with an agent of Donald J. Trump and for the purpose of influencing the election constituted a prohibited corporate in-kind contribution in violation of 552 U.S.C. Section 3118 sub A? Yes. Did you read that conciliation agreement at the time? I did. And did you understand 52 U.S.C. Section 3118 sub A to prohibit? Do you want me to re-ask that question again? Yes, please. I think you're just testified that you... Let me ask you the question. What did you understand 52 U.S.C. Section 3118... Hold on, everybody. The poll's coming back. To prohibit. What week will the jury... Ooh, okay. It looks like we're thinking May 27th. Is that what we're thinking? All right. May 27th. Then we've got next up June 3rd, then June 10th, May 20th, and then June 17th. Interesting, everyone. I think you're right. I think the 27th to the 3rd. I think that's a very good call. Yes. Oh my gosh. It's going to be interesting to see what happens at this point. It's my understanding that I left the company in August of 20. So this happened post my leaving, and the board of directors of the company agreed to this agreement. And it was my understanding that they paid a fine. I think it was $180,000. And that was my understanding of what I remember. So my question to you is this. Do you have an understanding at the time that AMI was entering into this conciliation agreement? Yes, I did. And did you understand that AMI was agreeing not to what law AMI was agreeing not to contest having violated? Oh, they agreed that they violated the campaign violation and withdrawn. Directing your attention to April of 2018, did you come to learn that the FBI had conducted search warrants at the home and office of Michael Cohen? Yes. How did you learn that? The FBI came to my home. Oops, sorry everyone, my voices got mixed up. Hold on, I've got a tea break so I don't mix up my voices. Here we go. Oh, thank you so much. Oh, thanks for the gifts, everybody. My goodness, I'm already running out of paper, so it's my paper fun. I really appreciate it. The FBI came to my home on that same day and had a search warrant for my phone, and I subsequently received a call from Dylan Howard that he had his phone also taken by search warrant from the FBI. And he mentioned to me that he also heard that Michael Cohen had had his office or apartment at that time, if I recollect, received a search warrant and took his office equipment and telephone. Just one moment, please. The phone that the FBI seized on that day, your phone, is that the phone that you had been using to communicate via text with Dylan Howard and Michael Cohen and other people relevant to this case? Oh, thank you so much. Yes. When was the last time that you saw or spoke to the defendant, roughly? The last time we spoke, I think, January, February of 2019. Oh my gosh, thanks for the gifts, everyone. And has he tried to reach out to you since then? Not directly. I have friends who belong to Mar-a-Lago, and they run into Mr. Trump, and he sends his regards. Did you ever respond? No, I did not. Why not? I felt that with the investigation that was going on at the time, I thought that it would be inappropriate to respond and have a conversation at all with Mr. Trump. Mr. Pecker, as you sit here today, do you have any bad feelings or ill will towards the defendant? Not at all. To the contrary. As I talked about, I think it was on Monday, I felt that Donald Trump was my mentor. He helped me throughout my career. And if I could just give one additional example, in 2001, after the 9/11 attack, my offices in Boca Raton, the American Media Building, had just been renovated, and it took about a year to renovate. And I just consolidated all of the tabloids in this building. And in the first week or the second week of October of 2001, we received multiple this kind of poison letters in white envelopes to various magazines. One of the editors opened up the envelope, inhaled weaponized poison, and ended up unaliving not too long after that. Ugh. And at the same time, within a matter of hours, within a day, the FBI took quarantine up the building because the building was filled with a poison. I then, at the time, all of the content that the tabloids had, photos, stories, was all quarantined, and we had to vacate the building, as I said. And I basically was in a very, very difficult place from a business standpoint, a personal standpoint. And the first person who called me and asked if I needed help was Donald Trump. And he was very helpful. He recommended an attorney. He helped me introduce me to, at the time, Sandy Wheel was the chairman for the Travelers Insurance Company, who had the insurance on the building and helped tremendously in continuing on with my business. So I have no ill will at all. And I still consider him even though we haven't spoken, I still consider him a friend. I didn't hear that last part. I said, even though we haven't spoken, I haven't seen him, I still consider him a friend. Thank you very much, Mr. Pecker. No further questions. Your witness. All right, everyone. Now we're getting into the cross-examination time, okay? Woo, we made it through Mr. Pecker's direct. I wasn't sure if we would, but we did. And I think we can continue on with his cross at this point. It doesn't go for too long, so. All right, so again, anything in blue is the government, anything in pink is the court, anything in orange is defense counsel. So as we go through this, Mr. Pecker is still on the stand, and we are now switching. You probably can't see that. We are now switching into our cross-examination from Mr. Bove or Bovey. Did you have a battery or no? My battery's good, and I don't see a puzzle yet. But thank you for telling me, and I do appreciate that. Sincerely, I seriously do. I need all the help I can get. Yikes! Yes, battery's looking good. Battery's looking pretty good. Oh my gosh, what would I do without all of your help, everyone? All right, here we go. Your witness. Thank you, Judge. Can we approach for 1 second, for 1 minute, Judge? Yes. At the sidebar? Yes. We don't have any exhibits for this witness if they're planning on using any cross. And we would ask that we be provided them so that we don't have to delay every time they try to show an exhibit that we haven't seen yet. Is there anything you need to turn over? I don't think anything that I don't have anything that I intend on offering. I have exhibits, I have documents and exhibits that I'm going to use to refresh his recollection. And if I need to lay a foundation on a document, that may impeach him with an inconsistent statement. But right now, I don't intend on offering anything, which is fine. But if he's going to show this witness documents, do you have copies of the documents that you're going to show him for us? Yes. Great. Perfect. That's all I would ask for. Yes. Thank you. Sidebar concluded. You may inquire. Thank you, Judge. You may inquire. Here we go. Cross-examination. Mr. Bove again for defense counsel. And each one of our answers again are Mr. Pecker. Just to remind everyone. Mr. Pecker, my name is Emil Bove, and I represent President Trump. Now, you testified that you were an executive at AMI from about 99 to 2020, right? That's correct. Oh, that's the wrong voice. That's correct. And though your title in that period were president, it was chairman, president, and CEO. Chairman of the board of directors, correct? Yes. And as part of your work as chairman of the board of directors, you met with other directors? Yes. You got to know them well, correct? Yes. And AMI also had investors, right? Yes. And I think you said you owned 10% of AMI during this period? That's correct. Do you still have equity in AMI's successor? Yes, but a lesser of an amount. And in this same time frame, while you were an executive at AMI and the investors were sophisticated people, right? Correct. Experienced in business? Yes. And you had fiduciary obligation to those investors, correct? I do. And you know what that means, right? Yes. You basically had to look out for the investors' interests. Yes. And that included making money for your investors. That is correct. And making money for yourself, right? As one of those investors? Yes. AMI wasn't a charity. No, it was not. Not a nonprofit? No. And based on the fiduciary obligation, the whole time that you were an executive there, you managed the company to make money, correct? That's correct. And you have said before, I think this was a business, right? Yes. Part of AMI's business model was to purchase stories, correct? Yes, it was. And I think you've distinguished between AMI's model and ABC's model earlier this morning, right? Yes, I did. And on Tuesday, you referred to AMI's model as checkbook journalism, correct? That's correct. And in connection with AMI's checkbook journalism under your watch, you only published about half of the stories that you purchased, correct? I would say that's about right. And in all of those instances where AMI examined stories, it included source agreements, right? That's correct. And in connection with those agreements, you would purchase the rights to a story? Yes. And the agreements typically required the source of the information not to disclose it to others? That is correct. And that's a basic non-disclosure tradition, right? Yes, that's correct. And the thinking there is that the story is less valuable to AMI if the source discloses it to someone else, correct? Correct. And these source agreements gave you a measure of control over the information that was going to be a part of the story? Yes, that's correct. Uh-oh. Oh, I've got the puzzle coming, everyone. Hold on, please. One moment. Okay, woohoo! We've got it. Oh my goodness. All right. Boy, it's always so stressful when I have to verify that I'm on a live. Even though it's very clear that I'm on a live, but all right, whatever. So where were we? Oh my goodness. All right, up we go. All right. Yes, that's correct. Standard operating procedure, correct? Yes. They gave you control over how the information would be released, right? Yes. When it would be released, if at all, correct? Yes. And sometimes you would decide not to run the story. That is correct. And there were a lot of reasons that you made those decisions between 99 and 2020, correct? Yes. Can you give us some examples? Well, when we purchased a story before we would publish it is, one, we would want to make sure that a story is true or not. So we would have to vet the story and have the editors go and check what the story is saying. Two, we would take the story, I'm using general terms, and see if and review it and make sure if this is something, if we're going to publish it, that the readers want to read about. And then, three, we might have the story and we don't think it's enough to publish, and we would try to trade the story for a better one. And there were also some instances where the story got overtaken by current events, right? Yes, that's correct. There was also something else hotter, so it didn't make sense to publish what you had at the source agreement for. Is that right? That's correct. And there's also instances where AMI purchased a story in order to use it as leverage against a celebrity, correct? Yes. To use it as leverage, to use it something like to get the celebrity to participate in an interview? That's correct. Or sometimes to get the celebrity to allow AMI to use the celebrity's likeness? Yes. And in those situations where you purchase the story to use as leverage, so we're using the word leverage instead of blackmail, everyone. I'm just noting that for personal note here. You had no intention of running the story itself, right? That wasn't the point. Or extortion. I think extortion could also work. That's correct. The point was to use it against the celebrity. Yes. And in all of the scenarios that we just talked about, your ability as an executive and leader at AMI was to control the release of the story was standard. Yes. Standard operating procedure at AMI between 1999 and 2020. Yes. And in fact, AMI had predecessors, right? It had been around for a long, long time, 85 years plus. And AMI has used hundreds of thousands of source agreements in ways that we just talked about, correct? Yes. Now, you've talked both on Tuesday and today about employees at AMI who help you do those things, right? Yes. One of them was Dylan Howard. That's correct. And let's focus on 2015 to 2017. Okay. Mr. Howard was the Chief Content Officer at AMI. Correct. And he had some other titles in the subsidiary publications, right? I think it was Editor-in-Chief of the National Enquirer. Yes. And you also mentioned a man today named Daniel Rodstein. Yes. Yes, Mary, you're correct. Right? Yes. And he worked at AMI prior to 2015, right? Correct. And in this period that I'm focused on, 2015 to 2017, he was a consultant, correct? Yes. And he had consulting company named Investor Advisory Services. Yes. Can we take a look at People's 161 evidence? And this is an invoice that we talked about this morning. Mr. Rothstein prepared, correct? That's correct. And you used Mr. Rothstein to take care of large sensitive payments on behalf of AMI, right? Yes. And your purpose in doing that, we can show this publicly. I'm sorry, thank you. Let me just step back a minute. Sure. Now that everybody can see this is one of the invoices that Mr. Rothstein prepared, right? That's correct. And you saw it around the time that he prepared it, correct? Yes. And so this is his company, right? This is his company. And when you were at AMI during this period, 2015 to 2017, you were using Mr. Rothstein to take care of larger sensitive payments on behalf of AMI, right? I did. And you did that because you were concerned about leaks, right? Yes. That's the purpose of using Mr. Rothstein. Yes. You had situations at AMI prior to 2015 where information got to the employees and then those employees leaked it to the public, and that was commercially damaging to AMI, correct? Correct. And so that's now why you were using Mr. Rothstein in this period from 2015 to 2017? Yes. We can take that down. Thank you. In late 2016, did you have a sense of what the average paid circulation of a National Enquirer was? Around 350,000. And in that same time frame in late 2016, as the election was approaching, you know that the circulation and subscribership of the New York Times was many, many multiples of that, correct? Yes. And you had been indicating during this period in the lead up to the election that 70% of AMI's revenue came from newsstand sales, correct? Yes. And you believe that basically the rest of AMI's revenue came from ad sales and subscriptions? That's correct. And there was a bit of science to the way that you were running AMI and the National Enquirer in this time frame, right? Yes. This time frame between being 2016 and a lead up to the election, right? That's correct. You had researchers who calculated and assigned a score or rating for potential stories, right? Yes. And the purpose of having them do the research was to figure out how to maximize profits for AMI, right? Yes. Getting back to the fiduciary duty that we talked about, yes. You actually participated in those meetings, correct? Yes. A quantitative assessment of how AMI was going to make money based off of stories was something that you were personally involved in? Yes, I was. And focused on? Yes. And I think you said on Tuesday that by the time The Celebrity Apprentice, the research showed that President Trump was the top celebrity in terms of helping sell the National Enquirer. Absolutely. And so that's a Celebrity Apprentice that we are talking about in the early 2000s, correct? Yes. And that was already established in your mind that President Trump was one of the people who could drive the most sales and maximize your profit for the National Enquirer, right? Yes. And so you ran articles about President Trump because it was good for business, correct? It was good for business. Let's talk a little bit about how you met President Trump. Yes. You've known him for about 40 years, right? That's right. And so that takes us back to around the late 1980s. Yes. And I think you said Tuesday you met him through Ron Perlman or Nick Ribas. Yes. You had a launch party for George Magazine at Mar-a-Lago. Do you remember that? Yes. That was in 95? Yes, I did. And Mar-a-Lago was President Trump's residence in Palm Beach, right? Yes. And that night you introduced President Trump to John F. Kennedy Jr. Yes, I did. And George Pataki, Mr. Pataki was a governor of New York at the time, right? Yes, he was. And you testified on Tuesday that you also worked with President Trump on a magazine called Trump Style. Do you remember that? Yes, I do. I wish we could all forget. And Trump Style came after George, correct? It came before George. Do you remember that the first issue of Trump Style was published around 1997? Oh, I didn't realize. I forgot about that. Well, do you remember that? I thought it came earlier. What was the Trump Style? It was a magazine that it's a custom. I would say it's a custom magazine. And the editorial point of view was everything about Mr. Trump, his brand, his concept of the magazine, his hotels, the apartments, the casinos, and then we wrote the editorial surrounding that. And so we can agree that Trump Style is in the early or mid 1990s, and that's more consistent with your recollection? Yes. So even by that period, you were looking to President Trump as somebody who can help the National Enquirer make money, correct? Yes. And is that always your intention, dating back to the early parts of this friendship, to not publish negative stories about President Trump, correct? Yes. It was not good for business, correct? Yes. And it was not good for your relationship with President Trump, right? Yes. And it was not unique to President Trump, was it? Can you rephrase that, please? Nobody likes bad publicity. Oh, no. Now, 1998 was one of the first times that you gave President Trump a heads up about a potentially negative story, correct? Yes. Just before you took over at the National Enquirer? Yes. And this story was relating to Marla Maples, right? Yes. And you tried to stop the story from running, correct? Yes. And you tried but failed? Yes. It ran? Yes. But this was the first time that you made the effort to reach out to President Trump about a story and to prevent it? Yes. And that's almost 17 years prior to that meeting that you described in August of 2015, right? That's correct. So 17 years of providing President Trump with a heads up about potentially negative publicity, correct? That's correct. Fair to say that predated that meeting at Trump Tower in August of 2015 by a long time? Yes. It was a lot of interactions, correct? Yes. And several stories, right? Yes. In addition to Trump's style, you also used the National Enquirer to run positive stories about President Trump, right? Yes, I did. Again, long before 2015, correct? Yes. And because that was good for business, right? Yes. And this sort of took off, this idea of using the National Enquirer to promote President Trump because it was good for you around the time of The Apprentice, the first show. That's correct. And this is in the early 2000s, correct? Yes. And I think you said Tuesday, by that time, early 2000s, you and President Trump had a mutually beneficial relationship, correct? That is correct. In addition to a friendship? Yes. And on the mutually beneficial relationship side of things, President Trump was giving you content to run in the National Enquirer, right? Correct? Yes. And that included information about ratings related to The Apprentice? That's correct. And what was going on with the show? Yes. Access to participants on The Apprentice, right? Yes. And that helped you, correct? Yes, it did. And in exchange for that, as part of this friendship, you also continue to provide President Trump with information about potentially negative stories. Yes. And you also prompted some of President Trump's positive stories, correct? I did. Before this investigation started, you had not heard the phrase catch and kill, correct? That's correct. Never heard of it? That's right. The first time you heard that phrase was from the prosecutor, right? That's correct. This relationship that you had with President Trump, this mutually beneficial relationship, you had similar relationships with other people, right? I did. Meaning that there were other people for which you would provide a heads up if there was potentially negative stories, correct? Yes. And other people that you would promote in the National Enquirer because it was good for you and it was good for them, right? Yes. And that included celebrities, right? Yes. And most celebrities want positive treatment in all publications, right? They do. And you also had a relationship like this with other politicians, correct? Yes. And you are aware that many politicians worked with the media to try to promote their image, right? Yes. And to promote their brand, correct? Yes. To facilitate their campaigns, correct? Yes. Standard operating procedure as you understand it, correct? Yes. And then sometimes when politicians were doing that is to try to win elections, right? Yes. Nothing surprising about that, is there? No. And that's your personal experience, correct? Yes. And you're also aware from your decades of experience in this industry, right? Yes. That includes even presidential candidates, correct? Yes. Long before 2016, right? That's correct. We talked a little bit, you and I, about Mr. Ron Perlman, right? Yes. And he's one of those people that you have a mutually beneficial relationship with, correct? Yes. And there are many instances where you've provided him a heads up on potentially negative stories. I did. And instances where you've promoted him in your publications, correct? Yes. And that relationship dates back to Mr. Perlman being one of your biggest advertisers through Revlon, correct? Yes. You're making a lot of money through Revlon, right? Yes. And in connection with that, you developed a friendship. I did. And also this mutually beneficial business relationship. Yes. And so as one example, in 1996, there was a story that they were going to run in Premiere Magazine. Do you remember this? Yes. And it was a story that was sort of calling into question that Planet Hollywood restaurant chain. Is that right? Yes. And Mr. Perlman was part owner of the Planet Hollywood restaurant. Is that right? Yes. And you happened to be president and chief executive officer of Premier at the time. You prevented this story from running, correct? I did. And that was because you understood that Mr. Perlman would have wanted that, right? Yes. And you were protecting his interests, correct? I was. And there's nothing wrong with that, is there? No. And you testified today about having done something similar for Arnold Schwarzenegger, correct? I did. Around that time when he was running for governor of California, right? Yes. That was 2003? Yes. And in that period of time, were you trying to acquire AMI's holding into Fitness Phase, right? I did. And I think you mentioned some of the publications, Shape, Muscle and Fitness, Men's Fitness, Flex, correct? That's correct. And as you tried to make those acquisitions, it was a huge deal, right? Yes. Worth about $365 million? That's correct. And so you wanted this to go through very much, correct? I did. And I think you said it this morning that you talked about it with Joe Weider. Yes, I did. Who was a sort of celebrity in the fitness phase and owned some of these publications? Yes. And Mr. Weider said, I'm interested, but we need Arnold's blessing, correct? Yes. And in order to move forward with this, would you call it a giant acquisition, $365 million? Yes. To move forward with this giant acquisition, you needed Arnold's blessing, correct? Yes. And so you went out to meet and met Arnold personally. I did. And you reached an agreement? Yes, we did. And there were a few aspects of this agreement. Is that correct at the time, right? Yes. And at the time of this agreement, he had not yet announced his candidacy to become the governor of California, right? That's correct. And so one aspect of the agreement was that Mr. Schwarzenegger didn't want any negative stories written about him in your magazines, right? Yes. And I think you said this morning that he had expressed some concerns with you, that in the past the National Enquirer had run some pieces that he didn't like. Yes. And you agreed, did you not, to make that happen? To stop running negative stories about Arnold Schwarzenegger? I did. And Mr. Schwarzenegger also asked you to help because he thought that there were a number of women that were going to come out and make accusations once he announced his campaign. Is that correct? Yes. And you agreed to help him with that, correct? I did. And in addition to that, Mr. Schwarzenegger, we given equity in AMI, correct? Yes. How much equity was he given in AMI in 2003? I remember it was less than 10%. How much was it worth at the time? It was probably worth at the time around $50 million. So $50 million in equity on a $365 million acquisition, right? Well, it was equity of the whole company. It's a significant amount relative to the size of the deal. Yes. And Mr. Schwarzenegger was even given executive positions, executive titles at least, in AMI's affiliates, right? Yes. And then he announced his candidacy, correct? Yes. And I think you said before at the time that women started coming out of the woodwork, right? That's correct. And so this morning you mentioned one story that you purchased for Arnold Schwarzenegger, correct? Yes. Purchased in 2003, right? Yes. But in fact, 30 or 40 women came. Dang, Arnold. Oh, man, these people. Sorry, everybody. Tea break. I'm never buying a magazine again, everyone. I said it. I said it and I mean it. All right? I said it and I mean it. But in fact, 30 or 40 women came to you, and AMI was following that, the announcement of his candidacy, correct? Yes. And you spent almost $1 million purchasing the rights to those stories, correct? I didn't think it was that high. Several hundred thousand? It was hundreds of thousands of dollars. And Mr. Schwarzenegger never paid you back for that, correct? No, he did not. Now, I think that the one story that you described purchasing this morning, the source was Gigi Goyette? Yes. And you bought the rights to a book that she wanted to publish about a relationship with Mr. Schwarzenegger, correct? That's correct. And you actually, during the candidacy, sent reporters to Miss Goyette and bring her to Hawaii to get her away from California so Mr. Schwarzenegger could campaign, correct? I did. And at some point, there was some backlash over this, correct? Yes. And that happened when you were investigated about an FEC's disclosure relating to the equity interest granted to Mr. Schwarzenegger, right? That's correct. And I think you testified this morning that there was an investigation in California. Yes. There were no findings against AMI in connection with that investigation, correct? No. And as a result, there was also an internal investigation at AMI, correct? Yes. And I don't want to get into what you and your attorneys or not, but as a result of that investigation, you and AMI decided to implement new policies and procedures around this type of issue with assisting a campaign like Mr. Schwarzenegger's, right? Yes. And you did that, right? You implemented policies and procedures. We did. And you followed them, correct? I did. Followed them, including in connection with the events you described in 2015, 2016, and 2017, correct? I thought I did. You thought you did? Yes. You have also purchased a story relating to Tiger Woods, right? Oh my gosh. I didn't. We didn't purchase. I should say yes. It was a source agreement, so we did purchase it, yes. We purchased a story about Tiger Woods from a source. Sorry about that. Back up. And you purchased some photographs, right? We purchased a story about Tiger Woods from a source, but all of the investigating photographs and all the investigative works were done internally. And the photographs that we're talking about are photographs of a woman meeting with Tiger Woods at a parking lot in Florida, right? That's correct. And this is one of those instances where you bought the rights to the story in order to leverage it against a celebrity, correct? Yes. To use that access that you had this information to the exclusive rights that you had to get to Tiger Woods so you could get Tiger Woods to do something you wanted? Yes. And in this instance, this was around 2007. That's correct. And in that instance, what you wanted was for Mr. Woods to appear on the cover of Men's Health, right? Wow. It was Men's Fitness. Thank you, Men's Fitness. And you also wanted him to do an interview, correct? Yes. And at another time, Mr. Woods, if not locked up exclusively, he had a relationship with Condé Nast, right? The answer is yes. And he also had an exclusive with, I think it was Golf, oh my gosh, Illustrated. So he needed some convincing to sit down with AMI, right? Yes. And so you bought the rights to those photographs, correct? Yes. And after that, at the time that you bought the photographs, you had no intention of running the story, correct? No, I wasn't going to run it. The purpose of buying the story? Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me. The purpose of buying the photographs was to leverage them against Tiger Woods to get him in the magazine, right? Yes. Now, we talked about mutually beneficial relationships, right? Yes. Another one you had was with a man named Ari Emanuel. Yes? Yes. Who's he? He's the chairman and CEO. Excuse me. He's the CEO of Endeavor. And you've known him since the 90s, right? Yes, since the early 90s. And since that time, if you hear a negative story about Mr. Emanuel, you will let him know, correct? Yes, I do. And where you have an opportunity in a way you think it would be beneficial to him, you run stories that promote him, correct? Yes. And there have been instances, have there not, where you've helped him suppress potentially negative stories related to Ari Emanuel, right? There are. I just want to clarify, maybe it might not be Ari Emanuel personally, but one of his celebrities. Tell us which celebrities that work with Mr. Emanuel that you have helped suppress negative stories for. A story on Mark Wahlberg? What was the story about Mark Wahlberg? He had this is going back a while. He had an argument with his wife and this story was bubbling and going to come out. And so at the request of Mr. Emanuel, AMI acquired the rights to that story, correct? We didn't publish the story. You did not publish the story? That's correct. But you acquired the rights to it, right? We didn't acquire the rights. Tell us how you prevented the story from being published. I advised Mr. Wahlberg's group on where they should purchase the rights for the story from, and I didn't publish, and we didn't publish it. Going back to Mr. Emanuel? Yes. You also helped his brother Rom, correct? Yes. And that was back in 2009, correct? Yes. And Area Emanuel reached out to you because of Rahm had a problem? Yes. And in this time frame, Rahm Emanuel had just left his position with President Obama, right? Yes. And he left that position to go campaign to be the mayor of Chicago, correct? Yes. And it was while his campaign was active at the time that Area Emanuel reached out to you, right? Yes. And you donated to that campaign, correct? In 2009 and 2010? I did. And what Mr. Area Emanuel wanted help with was a story about an affair with Rahm Emanuel had, correct? Yes. An affair that had happened in 2009 after Rahm Emanuel left the White House, right? Yes. And you did help him suppress that story, correct? I did. You acquired the rights to it. I did. And with the intention of not making it public, right? Yes. And you did that for Area Emanuel and for Rahm, correct? Yes. And during that time frame, you were negotiating a business deal with Chicago, correct? That I don't recollect. You weren't working to negotiate with the advisory firm on the Rahm Emanuel was associated with in Chicago in 2009 and 2010? Oh, Rahm Emanuel worked for, I think, was Wasserstein and Perella. My goodness, everybody. I'm sorry, yes. And so we were thinking about trying to acquire Playboy. And in connection with those negotiations were going on at the time you suppressed this story, right? Yes. And you did that in a manner that you believe was consistent with the policies and procedures that you implemented after the incident with Mr. Schwarzenegger, correct? Yes. And there were no issues with the FEC following that, correct? No. And no issues with any other regulators, correct? No. And the story was, in fact, suppressed at the time because AMI purchased the rights, correct? Yes. How much did that cost? $20,000. Now, you testified on Tuesday about a meeting at Trump Tower that you said happened in August of 2015. Do you remember that? Yes. And on that Tuesday, you said that meeting took place in the middle of August. Do you remember that? Hold on, I'm checking my battery, everybody. One moment. Okay, battery's okay. Yes. In previous discussions about prosecutors, you said that you had that the meeting occurred the first week in August, right? Yes. And that was a mistake, correct? Yes. And the prosecutors corrected you by letting you know that President Trump was actually at a debate in the first week of August of 2015, right? Objection. Overruled. You can answer. I didn't know he was out. He was at a debate. I wasn't informed of that. And in fairness, yes. These are things that happened a long time ago, right? Yes. And so in preparation for your testimony, the people have brought to your attention certain events that helps place your memory within dates, right? Right? Well, anytime I've spoken to a prosecutor, they ask me. And when they ask me any of these questions, they always said, do you remember, to the best of your knowledge, and to be as truthful as you can. So you said you testified in grand jury proceedings with the district attorney, correct? Yes. And that was in 2023, right? Last year? Yes. And during those grand jury proceedings, you stated, did you not, that the meeting took place the first week in August of 2015, right? Yes. And you changed your testimony here, right? Yes. When I discovered that it was the middle of August. And when you say you discovered, what do you mean? Is that somebody told you, notwithstanding what you testified about to the grand jury, President Trump was actually not in New York City during that first week in August, correct? Objection. Overruled. I don't recall anyone telling me about that Mr. Trump was away in the first week of August. So in the grand jury, you were under oath, right? Yes. And there was a court reporter like the one who's sitting in front of you right now, right? Yes. And you understand that was what you said, being taken down, right? Yes. Important to tell the truth, obviously. Yes. And you wanted to, right? Yes. And in 2023, you said that your best memory was that this meeting took place the first week in August, right? Correct? Yes. And then you changed your testimony this week on that issue, right? Yes, that's correct. And you're saying that you were not aware that President Trump was not in New York City during the first week of August of 2019 or 2015. Objection sustained. Hold on, everyone. And this is the point at which I must pause. We have hit our page limit for tonight. Oh my goodness. All right, let's see. Let's see how many pages we made it through tonight. Let's double check. Oh my goodness. All right, let me see. We started, okay, we've hit about 100 pages, everyone. All right, so we're at 100 and I'll have to call it at this point. All right, so what, a gazillion, it certainly feels that way. So one of the very classic techniques that we always use whenever we are involved with anyone who has testified or given a deposition or anything under oath in order to pull their credibility is to say, well, what's the answer? Was it correct then or was it correct today? And that's always a technique. We use it in every trial. In fact, I've never seen a trial where it hasn't been used, so long as there is a deposition or another proceeding. So that's very normal. That's very typical. Yeah, he did. He had an immunity deal with the feds as well as with the state. So I think that was very wise of him to do. So one other thing too, as you can see, defense counsel here is trying to say, well, you had other candidates that you worked for, that you did this with, and you didn't have any problems. So my question would be, what's the difference between the other candidates and Mr. Trump? What makes Mr. Trump's situation different? So we have other people that were running, but also other celebrities. So what's something that you think is unique with Mr. Trump? I'm wondering. Whole industry. It was. I know, Alice. Oh my gosh. I didn't realize how bad it was. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm glad I didn't. Their friendship? What did Tiger run for? Good question. Tiger really didn't run for anything, but it was just showing that, you know, he kind of had this propensity towards business deals as well. So we had business deals in Chicago. We had business deals with Tiger. We had to get Arnold Schwarzenegger's permission for a business deal, but he was a candidate, and then we had a couple of other candidates. But what was the biggest, what do you think the biggest difference is for Pecker for the deal with Stormy Daniels versus all of the other deals that he made? Sounds like blackmail. It certainly does. Remember Carolyn? Yes. About their friendship. The timing after the election. Yes, that's important. That's also important. Yep, none of the others were running for president. True. So we have different levels of candidacy, collusion, maybe rights to interview Trump, campaign funds. Well, we did have some campaign funds issues, which is where we got into it with, with the Schwarzenegger situation in Chicago. Larger sums of money, yes. Election interference, right. So we've got this interference issue, but that would have been present for any of the elections, for any of the candidates. Carol Burnett sued them, Roseanne and Tom. Yes. Oh, it's terrible. Well, for me, what I noticed during Mr. Pecker's direct testimony when he was being asked, like, well, why did you draw the line? So you paid the doorman, you paid Karen McDougal, you're supposed to get paid back, and you weren't getting paid back. But why draw the line at Stormy Daniels? What was it about this third interaction? So he had all these interactions with all these other people and cut stories, bought stories, and so on. But what was it about the Stormy Daniels story where he just said, I'm not going to do it? Because that's how all of this, kind of fell apart, was Cohen had to come in with the Stormy Daniels situation. Not only that, but he wasn't getting paid back. Of course, Mr. Pecker wasn't. Wife was 8 months pregnant. Right. There's specific testimony where Mr. Pecker said that Mr. Trump was involved with a porn star, and he said he didn't want to have anything to do with that. So I'm just noting when his testimony came out and they're saying, well, why didn't you? He specifically noted because she was a porn star. And that was it. That was it for him. So none of the other people involved in any of these other situations could be labeled as a porn star. I'm wondering if that's really what made the difference, was because of her job title. Again, because we had a Playboy Playmate, we had, which is different. That's a different world, and an actress, models, different housekeepers, whatever. But Stormy Daniels, he specifically said she was a porn star and he didn't want to get involved in that. That was where his final line was after decades of doing all of this stuff. That's where he drew the line, was because she was a porn star. Yeah, I think that's very weird. I think that's very interesting. I'm not sure. I'm not sure about Tiger. That I don't know. He kind of already was. Well, right. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, I think. Stormi was only one out of, well, right. I mean, there were lots of people that came forward. Wouldn't put the paper in their stores. Exactly, David. Exactly right. Because Walmart, any of these other stories about these alleged affairs, exactly right, David. They're like, sure, fine, whatever, who cares? But when you pull in this title of porn stars, Walmart was like, we're not gonna sell your magazines here in our store, and that was their number one. So it all came down. So was it this sense of like, oh, well, you know, I just can't be, you know, this is just atrocious to my moral sensibilities, or like your biggest seller was like, we're not going to publish it. Right. I know. So in the end, if we go down the Inception road, so ultimately it's Walmart that has caught the situation. I don't know about that. But I think it's interesting. I think it's always about the money. Absolutely. Walmart in the 90s. Yes, they wouldn't sell the CDs. Right. I mean, Walmart was huge, of course, at that period of time, too. That's a great, I mean, and still are. But, I mean, isn't that so interesting that Mr. Pecker knows who he's selling to. If he's selling it to Walmart, if he's selling the people he's selling it to, the subscribers, all of those, the subscriptions that he's selling. So he knew who his buyers were. And he knew that this story with Stormi Daniels would hurt his magazine because of Walmart. So Donnie would have done the same thing. Oh, VC, exactly. Trump would have done the same thing. All these people are all in the same, you know, pool of, you know, making interesting choices. Yeah, because, Lady Tamara, I mean, that's interesting, though, isn't it? Because there's one thing to be like, oh, Tiger Woods and was cheated on and blah, blah, and there's all these scandals. But that's different than actually putting on the title of your magazine that there's a porn star involved. So I think that's fascinating. It may be, you know, of no relevance, but for me, I think it's very interesting to note, again, what it was that was his line, what Mr. Lyons Pecker was. What Mr. Pecker's line was of finally saying no. I think it was multiple things. I think it was because he wasn't getting paid back and time was running down for when he had to do his books, and he didn't like that. But I think another part of it was this element of the fact that she was a porn star. Right. I think that definitely played a role. And I'm not saying whether that's right or wrong. I'm just saying I think it's an interesting take on this situation as well. So, adult film actress, exactly, yes. See, I don't see anything wrong. I mean, for me, when I'm speaking of careers, I don't think there's anything wrong with, you know, that as a career. So, you know, but then again, that's just for me. I'm not Walmart, which I guess is particular about that. I don't know. You know, as long as you're following the law, do what you got to do, you know, make some money, do what you need to do. I'm not going to judge your job choice. That's not my job. Just follow the law. Just don't break any laws. This was already in the public. Yes. Yeah. And it came out, because we did have a model Playboy Playmate with Karen McDougal. We had that, but there's like kind of this, you know, Playboy is amazing at how they really spun this into like, oh, it's classy. It's the classy stuff. I just read it for the articles, right? So as opposed to, you know, Larry Flynt, you know, we've got kind of a different world there. Well, right. Well, now Born to Bark, that's a whole nother rabbit hole. I'm saying choices, individual people choices, as so long as they are individual people choices, for me, I will not cast judgment. Now, if they're pressured or if they are exploited choices, now I could absolutely have a problem with that. Yes, with Arnold and the others. Now, I didn't know there were 30 to 40 people involved. I mean, come on. Come on, Arnold. Come on. Are you kidding me? I mean, come on. Wouldn't this story have also come out right after? Yes. Yeah, and it was the timing of it as well. The timing was very important. It was right around that time again. And she signed her NDA and signed her story just within a couple of days of that. Yep. Absolutely, Born to Bark. I mean, it's an excellent point. We can't support exploitation. That's not to be supported. Absolutely. Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know. I think when we start getting into that kind of an industry, we have to walk carefully. We have to tiptoe carefully. But I don't know. That's what I thought was interesting about Mr. Pecker's testimony. Also, I think Mr. Pecker's just like, you know what? I'm done with this. I've already, I've done what I've done and I've made my agreements. I'm not going to jail. So what do you want to know? I think that was very helpful also for his credibility to the jury. So I think that was very good. So I do have, after I think we've pretty much solidified Mr. Pecker's I'm ready to be done with Mr. Pecker, okay? I've had enough. I've had enough of Mr. Pecker's testimony. All right, it's time to move on. So we do have several other witnesses, which I just have excerpts from. And I will be, oh, hello, Navy Vet, good to see you. I will be pulling excerpts from some of the other witnesses, but then I will be reading the full amount of Mr. Davidson's testimony along with Hope Hicks. Now, Hope Hicks's transcripts have not been made available yet. And hello, Monty, good to see you. So once those are made available, of course, I will be going live. I would really like to get through her testimony as soon as I possibly can. I think that's very important. But I think Davidson also has some good pieces as well. So I will be reading through those for sure sometime this week. Yes, I'm done. I'm done with Mr. Pecker's. Exhibits from Friday are there, but not the transcripts. I saw that, VC. Yeah. I'm just so thankful, though, that they are making it available to the public. I'm trying to not be too, like, come on. But yeah, it's fascinating. It's a fascinating time. So coming up for this week, everyone, I do plan to go live tomorrow. My usual time, 7 o'clock. I'll have my comments open to everyone, of course. Will you cry for us when Hope cries, please? I'll do my best, Edwin. I'll do my best. I'm running out of voices, everyone. I'm getting myself a little mixed up. I have different people that live in the house with me, and at various times they just look at me and shake their heads as I'm reading through these transcripts. They're like, who was that one? I'm like, forget about it. But I will do my best for sure. Absolutely. I think it's so important, the information that we read in these transcripts is just, that's it. We can get all the reporting that we want, but to actually see the words and hear the words themselves, I think are very important. Oh my gosh. Well, we'll see the cast of characters. I know. I'm doing okay so far, Donna. I'm doing okay. Oh my gosh. Baby voice. Well, we'll see. I do try to test a few of them out, so... Oh my goodness. But I will be back, everyone. I will be back. I shall return this week again. Usually my normal time is at 7 o'clock Central. Sometimes I do try to hop on kind of midday, especially if I feel like I'm not going to be able to make it that night. So I will be back on going through transcripts. We do have a lot of other information coming out as well. So I will be making sure the puppets again soon. Yes, we got to get the puppets involved. So I will... be back up and running this week, so I will be back then. With that, I will go ahead and sign off for tonight, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you, moderators, for all the hard work that you put in. I'm so thankful for your time and energy, and for all the subscribers. Thank you. I will be going and getting more paper and changing out my ink. I'm very thankful. I have a very responsible recycling program, just FYI, everyone. So no need to worry about that. But thank you all, and I wish you the best of nights. I will be back again tomorrow, and I will hope to see you all then. So take care, and thanks again for coming and hanging out with me. It's so much fun.